Bola's mother came to the school, pleading with the principal to allow her daughter to finish her WAEC exams. She argued that it was unfair to jeopardize her future over a school rule. However, the principal stood firm. "Madam, your daughter's behavior has been unacceptable. She has repeatedly broken school rules and bullied other students. I cannot make exceptions." Tinúkẹ́ continued pleading with the school authorities to reconsider her daughter. She did all she could, but the principal disagreed. The day Bola was expelled from school was one of the most humiliating moments in her young life. The principal, a stern man known for his unwavering sense of discipline, turned a deaf ear to Tinúkẹ́'s heartfelt pleas to reinstate her daughter, despite Tinúkẹ́'s desperate appeals, explaining how she had sacrificed so much for Bola's education. The principal was resolute. He refused to reconsider his decision. Bola left the school in shame, her head bowed low as whispers and murmurs followed her down the corridors. The other students watched with a mix of curiosity and relief. Among them were the young defenders who had long suffered under Bola's tyranny. They all felt a sense of triumph. Her expulsion symbolized a victory and a return to peace for the school. They celebrated quietly, knowing that their tormentor would no longer be around to disrupt their days. At home, Tinúkẹ́ was consumed with anger and displeasure. For the first time in her life, she lashed out at her daughter, her voice trembling with frustration and disappointment. "Bola, I sacrificed everything and sent you to school to become great in the nearest future, only for you to go to school and start dating your junior. Oh, what a shame! You're such a disgrace and big disappointment to me," she shouted, her face flushed with emotion. Bola stood there. She felt a little bit of remorse, but it quickly dissipated as she shrugged off her mother's words, acting like nothing had happened. "That's not the end of the world, Mom," she said nonchalantly before turning and walking away. Tinúkẹ́ watched her daughter's retreating figure, a sense of helplessness washing over her. It was in that moment she realized she had a truly naughty child on her hands. The news of Bola's expulsion spread quickly throughout the village. It became the talk of the town, with everyone discussing the shocking events. Parents started using Bola's story as a cautionary tale to warn their children. "Face your studies and don't be like Bola, who went to school to date and kiss her junior. Education is key. It's a way to a better future," they would say, hoping to instill the importance of education in their children. Whenever Bola went out, she was met with mockery and ridicule. Children and adults alike would point and whisper as she passed by. She felt the weight of their judgment and disapproval, but tried to shrug it off. However, her deaf ears only fueled the villagers' anger. They were furious that she wasn't showing any signs of remorse, instead frolicking through the village with an air of indifference, as if nothing had happened. Since it was already the end of the school session, Bola couldn't enroll in another school immediately. She spent the rest of the term and the holidays at home, wandering the streets and continuing to bully some of her peers. Her behavior didn't change much, but now, whenever she tried to fight anyone, they would use her expulsion against her. You're a useless child who went to school to date her junior. They would shout before running away to avoid her wrath. Despite the mockery and insults, Bola struggled to regain her sense of control. The shame and humiliation gnawed at her, but she masked her feelings with arrogance. The villagers' disdain didn't deter her from her usual antics. Tinuke's ears were constantly filled with stories of her daughter's misbehavior in the village. She tried everything she could to caution Bola, but all her efforts yielded no change. Instead, Bola grew worse and more disrespectful. The villagers' tales of Bola's antics only deepened Tinuke's frustration and despair. One day, Tinuke called Bola into the living room and, with a heavy heart, informed her, "I have enrolled you in St. Mary's all-girls secondary school. You need to finish your studies and graduate." Bola was immediately defiant. "What? An all-girls school? What for? I'm not even interested in education anymore," she declared, her voice full of scorn. Bola had lost all interest in education and was adamant about not returning to school. She wanted to live her life her way, enjoying herself without the constraints of formal education. Tinuke tried to force her, using every argument and plea she could muster, but Bola remained unmoved. Bola believed that success didn't require schooling, and she stubbornly clung to this belief. Tinuke was bitterly disappointed and felt a profound sense of failure. That night, she couldn't sleep. She knew she had raised a rebellious child and felt the weight of her perceived failures as a mother. Her heart was heavy with regret, and she was consumed with thoughts of what might have been if she had heeded the advice of the villagers and her own mother to discipline Bola when she was younger. She remembered the proverb, "Whoever spares the rod hates their children," or "the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them." She realized that true love required a diligent discipline, something she had neglected. She wished fervently that she could turn back the hands of time and correct her mistakes. Tinuke's sadness deepened into a profound depression. She stopped talking to Bola, retreating into herself and staying indoors. She cried often, her grief overwhelming her. She lost her appetite, barely eating, and her once vibrant spirit faded. The regret of not disciplining Bola when she had the chance gnawed at her, leaving her feeling hollow and hopeless. Her heartache was palpable, and she felt like a shadow of her former self, mourning the daughter she had lost to rebellion and defiance. Bola noticed her mother's growing sadness and withdrawal. The change in Tinuke's behavior was stark and unsettling. One day, unable to bear it any longer, Bola approached her. "You've been keeping to yourself and not eating for this now, Mom. What's wrong? You're making me scared," Bola said, her voice trembling with concern. Tinuke looked at her daughter, the weight of her sorrow evident in her eyes. "Bola, I have sacrificed everything to give you a good life and education. I sent you to school so you could become great, but instead, you chose to misbehave, to date your junior, and to disgrace yourself and me. You've thrown away the opportunities I worked so hard to provide. Do you know how much it hurt to see you waste your potential? Bola felt a pang of guilt and remorse, something she had not truly felt before. Seeing her mother in such pain was unbearable. So, what do you want me to do now? Is it to go back to school? She asked, her voice softening. Yes, Bola. You need to go back to school and finish your education. Tinuke replied, her voice firm but hopeful, realizing the depth of her mother's love and sacrifices. Bola agreed. Okay, Mo, I'll go back to school and finish my education, she said, determination in her voice. With her mother's encouragement, Bola enrolled in a new school and vowed to change her ways. She maintained good conduct, minded her own business, and focused on her studies. She made a conscious effort to avoid bullying anyone, determined not to repeat her past mistakes. Bola's hard work paid off. She wrote her WAEC and final exams. She graduated from secondary school, and when the results came in a few weeks later, she had done amazingly well. Overjoyed, she rushed home to share the news with her mother. Yes, Mommy, I made it! I made it! Bola exclaimed, waving her results excitedly. Tinuke's eyes filled with tears of joy. I knew you were going to make me proud, she replied, embracing her daughter tightly. They celebrated the good news together, their hearts filled with happiness and relief. Tinuke's fate in her daughter had been reported. They were still in the mood of celebration when they suddenly heard a knock at their door. Bola went to check the door. She saw a strange man standing by the door. How may I help you, please? She asked. I'm looking for Tinuke, the stranger replied. Bola called her mother's attention. Tinuke was shocked at the sight she saw by her door. It was Kayode, her beloved husband. 16 years had passed since Kayode left for the UK, promising his pregnant wife that he would return and bring her and their unborn child to join him abroad. He never contacted Tinuke again, leaving her to raise their daughter on her own. Now, suddenly, Kayode was back in the village, looking worn and defeated. Tinuke's heart raced as she saw the man she had once loved standing at her doorstep. Kayode, she whispered, barely able to contain her emotions. Mom, who is he? Bola asked. He's your father, she replied. Which father? Is it the dead one or the newly resurrected father? Bola replied angrily and walked away. Kayode, where have you been? And what are you doing here? Tinuke asked, her voice a mixture of surprise and heartbreak. Kayode let himself into the house and began narrating his story. Tinuke, I was arrested and jailed for 14 years for a crime I didn't commit. I was only released recently and came back home as soon as I could, not minding the shame and mockery I would get in the village. Tears welled up in his eyes as he spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. Tinuke felt pity and compassion for him. Kayode continued his story, pleading for forgiveness. I know I abandoned you and Bola, and I can't imagine how hard it's been for you both. I had nowhere else to go, and I'm asking for your forgiveness, Tinuke. Tinuke's heart broke as she listened to his tale, but she was also deeply disappointed in him for leaving them all these years. Despite her feelings, she couldn't turn him away. Kayode went ahead to ask that she give food to eat as he hadn't eaten since morning. "Alright, Kayode, sit down. I will make you something to eat," she said, heading to the kitchen. Bola, however, was furious. She stayed in her room, waiting impatiently for Kayode to leave. As night fell and he showed no signs of leaving, Bola's anger grew. Finally, unable to wait any longer, she confronted her mother. "What is this thing doing here, Mom?" she demanded. "He's going to be staying with us. He's your father," Tinuke replied, trying to remain calm. "He's not my father. I don't have a father," Bola retorted angrily. "Will you keep quiet?" Tinuke snapped. "How dare you talk to your father that way? That I failed you as a father, but he's still your father. You don't know the reasons behind his actions. Don't be so disrespectful." Bola's anger simmered. "I say he has lied to you and you've bought all his lies. You have to send him away, or you will have to choose between me or him." Bola gave her mother a hard nut to crack. She told her to choose between letting Kayode stay with them or she would leave the house for them. Kayode, who had overheard their conversation, ran to the scene and tried to caution Bola. "I'm your father, at least. I deserve some respect," he said. "I have no father, young man. My father is long dead." Kayode tried to slap her, but Bola held his hand and gave him a thorough warning. "Let this be the last time you raise your hand to hit me or even attempt to. The next time you try this, you will regret it for life," she said before storming off. Kayode was dumbfounded at her audacity and lack of discipline. He felt terribly disappointed and, out of anger, turned to Tinuke and began blaming her. "Tinuke, just one child, just one, and you couldn't train her? That's awful." Tinuke lashed out at him, her anger boiling over. "How dare you blame me? Where were you all these years, Kayode? While I was here, sacrificing everything, raising her alone, you were nowhere to be found. Don't you dare put this on me." Kayode, taken aback by her fierce response, fell silent for a moment. He hadn't expected such a strong reaction. Tinuke continued, her voice shaking with emotion. "You came back after all these years and expect everything to be fine? You think you can walk in here and criticize my parenting? You have no right. You know what? I have had enough of this. Get out of my house right now," she screamed. Tinuke's eyes were filled with tears of frustration and pain. She turned away from him, unable to contain her emotions any longer. "You don't know what it's been like, Kayode. You don't know the struggles, the sacrifices. Don't you dare judge me. Get out now," she screamed louder. Kayode, realizing he had nowhere else to go, admitted his error, fell to his knees and begged Tinuke to let him stay. Tinuke was filled with displeasure, but seeing his desperation, she reluctantly agreed to let him stay. The room was thick with tension and unresolved emotions, leaving them both to face the painful reality of their fractured family. The next morning, Bola approached her mother, her face set with determination. "Make your choice quickly, Mom. Either choose between me or your husband." Tinuke, caught in the middle, couldn't give her an answer. "Bola, it's not that simple. Please, try to understand." "Well, Mom, if you can't choose, then I will leave this house," Bola retorted. She packed her things and left the house, Bola felt heartbroken that her mother would choose a long-gone man over her. Her steps were heavy with anger and sadness as she walked away, her heart aching from the perceived betrayal. Tinuke, frantic and filled with guilt, searched the village for her daughter. She moved from one house to another, pleading with anyone who would listen. "Have you seen Bola, please? I need to find her." But none of the friends she met could tell her where her daughter was. The villagers, quick to mock, called out to her as she passed. "Choosing a husband over your own child? What kind of mother are you? Shame on you, Tinuke." Tinuke's heart sank deeper with every word. She felt their judgment like a heavy weight on her shoulders. Despite her efforts, she couldn't find Bola. Exhausted and heartbroken, she eventually gave up searching, hoping her daughter would be fine. Her worries consumed her, and she could only pray for Bola's safety, regretting every moment that had led to this painful situation. Bola had warned Darren never to reveal her location to anyone at all. Darren, being a loyal friend, held on to this promise and kept her location a secret. No one knew she was living with him. Bola had met Darren in the new school where she enrolled for her exams. Though Darren had been friends with Bullies, he never joined them. Instead, he focused on his studies and his future. Darren was an orphan who lived in the house his parents left for him before their demise. There, he housed Bola and kept her secret. One day, Tinuke had just returned from the market when she heard loud footsteps running into her house. She rushed to the sitting room to see what was going on and found Kayode breathing heavily. "What's wrong? Why are you panting so hard?" she asked. Kayode replied, saying he was trying to run away from old faces in the village to avoid mockery and gossip. Kayode continued sneaking around the village, taking less busy routes to avoid being seen. One day, while sneaking around, he saw a familiar face and was shocked. Immediately, he ran back home. He had seen Dan, a man he knew from his time in the UK. He wondered what Dan was doing in his village. Unknown to him, Dan had seen him too. Dan had come to the village for his wedding. When he returned home, as usual with relationship gossip, he narrated everything about Kayode to his fiancée. The next day, Kayode's news began spreading around the village. The villagers were opposed with the revelation, and soon everyone knew Kayode's whereabouts and the details of his past. Tinuke, oblivious of the gossips spreading around the village, made her way to the market at evening. Then, she noticed villagers looking at her. She had thought maybe something was wrong with her outfit or something else. But the more she walked into the market, the more the gazes increased. She realized all eyes were on her and gossiping about her. She heard a group of women gossiping. "Did you hear? Kayode was deported, not jailed though. He married a white woman and had 3 children with her." One woman said, "I heard they had a big fight, and that's why he was sent back." Another added. Tinuke's heart pounded. She hurried with her shopping and made her way back home. But as she was about leaving the market, one of the women approached her. Her name was Nike. Nike, who was widely known for gossips in the village, asked her, "Tinuke, are all these news I'm hearing about your husband true? Are they for real?" "What news, please?" Tinuke asked curiously. "I heard Kayode was deported. Is it that true?" Tinuke ignored her and hurried out of the market. With a pounding heart, she rushed home. Upon her arrival, she began screaming out his name. "Kayode! Kayode! Where are you?" Kayode showed up, looking worried. "What's the matter?" he asked. "Tell me. It's not true. Just tell me it's all lies, please." Her voice trembling with anger and betrayal. "Is it true, Kayode? Talk to me. Were you deported? Did you marry another woman and have children with her?" Kayode's face turned pale. He knew he couldn't keep up the lie any longer. "Yes, it's true," he confessed. "After my master's degree, I met a woman named Emily. We got married and had 3 children, but things went wrong." Tinuke's eyes filled with tears. "What happened, Kayode? Why were you deported?" Kayode took a deep breath and began to recount the events that led to his downfall. After completing his master's degree, Kayode faced the daunting prospect of securing a permanent residency in the UK. His student visa was nearing its expiration, and he needed a way to stay legally. It was then that he met Emily, a British woman who offered a solution. She proposed marriage, a seemingly perfect arrangement that would grant Kayode the residency status he desperately needed. Kayode agreed and they quickly got married. At first, everything seemed to go smoothly. He applied for residency and started working to support himself and family. They eventually had 3 children together, and for a while, Kayode believed he had found a stable life. However, their relationship was built on shaky grounds. Emily had entered the marriage for financial gain, demanding more money from Kayode as time passed. The initial agreements of a mutual benefit turned sour as Emily's greed grew. He threatened to report the marriage as fraudulent if Kayode didn't comply with her demands. Kayode tried to keep up with Emily's financial expectations, but the pressure became unbearable. Their home turned into a battleground with constant arguments and threats. Eventually, Emily carried out her threat. She contacted a home office, claiming that their marriage was a sham and that Kayode had married her solely to obtain residency. The authorities launched an investigation into their marriage. Neighbors and acquaintances were interviewed, and the stress took its toll on Kayode. Despite his efforts to prove the legitimacy of their relationship, the evidence against him was overwhelming. Emily's detailed accusations and the lack of genuine emotional connection in their marriage led to a grim conclusion. Kayode was detained, and after a lengthy legal battle, he was ordered to be deported. The authorities considered his actions a breach of immigration laws, and his residency application was rejected. Kayode was sent back to Nigeria, stripped of the life he had tried to build in the UK. As Kayode recounted his story, Tinuke listened in silence. She could see the pain and regret in his eyes, but her own heart was filled with hurt and betrayal. She had struggled alone for years, raising Bola without any support from the man who had abandoned her. Kayode finished his story with tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, Tinuke. I made terrible mistakes and I've paid the price. I just want to make things right with you and Bola." Tinuke looked at him, her expression a mix of anger and sorrow. "You left us, Kayode. You abandoned your family. How can we ever trust you again?" Kayode fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness. "Please, Tinuke, give me a chance to prove myself. I want to be a part of Bola's life. I I want to make amends for everything that I've done. Tinuke's heart ached. She saw the sincerity in his eyes, but the wounds of the past were deep. It will take time, Kayode. Trust isn't easily rebuilt. Tinuke sat in stunned silence. Her heart felt like it was being torn apart. The man she had once loved, the father of her child, had married another woman and started a new family. While she had waited for him and ignored every proposal from other men, raising their daughter alone, the betrayal cut deeper than she could have ever imagined. She had hoped that his return would bring joy and closure, but instead, it had reopened old wounds and inflicted new ones. The tears that had welled up in her eyes now spilled over, streaming down her cheeks. How could you? Tinuke's voice trembled with a mix of anger and sorrow. How could you leave me, leave us, and build a new life with someone else? Do you have any idea what it was like raising Bola alone, waiting for you, believing you were coming back? Kayode hung his head in shame. I was wrong, Tinuke. I know I can't undo the past, but I want to make things right now. Tinuke shook her head, her voice rising. You want to make things right now? After 16 years? After lying to me about being in jail for 14 years? You betrayed me, Kayode. You betrayed our family. She stood up, the weight of her emotions pressing down on her. I can't look at you without feeling this immense pain. You promised me a future and you abandoned me. And now you come back and expect me to welcome you with open arms? No, Kayode, it's too late. Kayode reached out, trying to hold her hand, but she pulled away. Her eyes blazing with a mix of hurt and fury. I waited for you, she continued, her voice breaking. I raised Bola without any help. I struggled. I sacrificed. And all the while you were living a lie. You married someone else and had a family. When I was here, suffering. The realization that she had been deceived for so long was like a knife to her heart. Tinuke felt a deep sense of loss, not just for the years she had spent alone, but for the dreams and hopes that had been shattered. I can't do this, Kayode, she said, her voice now a whisper. You need to leave. I can't have you here, not after everything you've done. Kayode's eyes widened with desperation. Please, Tinuke, don't send me away. Let me prove that I've changed. Let me be here for Bola. Tinuke's expression hardened. You had 16 years to be here for us, and you chose not to. You need to go. I need to protect myself and my daughter from any more of your lies. With that, she turned away from him, unable to bear the sight of the man who had caused her so much pain. Kayode stood there for a moment, his heart breaking as he realized the full extent of the damage he had done. Slowly, he gathered his belongings and walked out of the house. As Kayode left, Tinuke felt a mixture of relief and anguish. She had taken the stand, but the love she once had for him still lingered, now tainted with betrayal. She knew it would take time to heal, but she was determined to rebuild her life, focusing on the future she could still create with Bola, free from the shadows of Kayode's past. She immediately decided to look for her daughter at all costs. The next day, she went into the village, moving from one house to another in search of her beloved daughter. Yet, all her efforts bore no fruit. All the people she asked claimed never to have seen Bola or known anything about her whereabouts. Tinuke continued searching for her daughter for days but couldn't find her. She started feeling guilty and got scared. How is it that I can't find my daughter in this whole village? She grew worried and afraid, though she knew Bola to be smart enough and be safe. But she wasn't ever going to forgive herself if anything bad happened to her daughter. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please like this video, comment and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe for part 3 and turn on the notification bell so you can always get notified when we drop the next part of this story. Thanks for watching. Bye.